restorative justice, what it means and how we can practice same. So restorative justice All right, so restorative justice is the process to involve, to the extent possible, those who have taken a specific offense and to collectively identify and address harms, needs, and obligations in order to heal and put things as right as possible. So it is basically like there's an issue, there's an offense, and you're trying to put things into perspective so that there can be some form of recovery to what has happened. So the key elements in restorative justice, there are three main pillars. You have harms and needs, obligations, and engagement. So those are the three main pillars of restorative justice. Ron Clausen, a long-time restorative justice practitioner, puts it like this: to resolve any type of wrongdoing, three things have to happen. So the first thing is that the wrong or injustice must be acknowledged. So the person who have wronged another person or may have committed an offense, they have to first acknowledge that they did something wrong. Second, equity needs to be restored. So equity means that equal, everyone is equal. So that needs to be restored. We need to be on an equal ground. Third, future intentions need to be addressed. So what will be happening after this? What's the way going forward? So an encounter provides an opportunity for the wrongdoing to be articulated by victims and acknowledged by the offenders. Outcomes such as restitution or apology help to even the score. That is to restore equity. So for example, somebody do you wrong, they apologize. There's some form of reform. So we know that after that, it restores equity because we are now on equal ground. I accept that I've done something wrong and I'm now settling the issue that was being done wrong. So when we look at defining restorative practices, the schools have become an important place for restorative practice, for example. While there are some similarities to restorative justice programs like criminal cases, the approaches used in an educational setting must necessarily be shaped to fit that context. So it can be used in school setting, it can be used in our church setting, can be used even in our home setting, or community setting. So restorative practice now is looking at or studying how to build social capital and achieve social discipline through participatory learning and decision making. So it involves the input of all stakeholders that are involved. Equity is being established and decision making. What's the conclusion that one may come to? Restorative practice has its root in restorative justice, a way of looking at criminal justice that emphasizes repairing the harm done to people and relationship rather than only punishing offenders. So that according to Zay 1990. So what basically is saying, instead of like punishing persons, you try to look at what may cause that harm. You may look at what is happening. So the context of the situation. So what was done to people and relationship. So you try to bring about some form of restoration. The IRP disguise between the terms restorative practices and restorative justice. There are two different terms. So we view restorative justice as a subset of restorative practice. Restorative justice is reactive. So it consists in a formal or informal responses to crime and other wrongdoing after it occurs. The IRP definition of restorative practice also includes the use of informal and formal processes that precede wrongdoing. So those are proactively build relationship and a sense of community to prevent conflict and wrongdoing. So it is preceding it. So it's not to say that you do it and then we are trying not to fix it. So it is looking at how we can actually build unity, or we can come together as a one. So there's a sense of community. And we know when we speak of community now, we're speaking of us being one. So whether it's in the family, school, workplace, wherever we are, so we can prevent conflict and wrongdoing. So where social capital, that's a network of relationships, is already well established, it is easier to respond effectively to wrongdoing and restore social order. So if, for example, in a workplace or you're at school, once there's that relationship, that network of relationship is established, then it becomes easier when something is happening to restore social order. So as a way to help create a healthy and positive organizational environment. Social capital is defined as the connections among individuals. That's Putman 2001. And the trust, mutual understanding, shared values and behaviors that bind us together and make cooperative action possible. In public health terms, restorative justice provides tertiary prevention introduced after the problem has occurred with the intention of avoiding reoccurrence. So that's what you call tertiary prevention. So the problem occurred, the conflict, whatever it is, and then now you're trying to stop it from reoccurring. So you're trying to put an end to it there. What are we restoring? So there are three main things that we are trying to restore. The first one, we are restoring those who have been harmed by the wrong. So we know that there are those persons that are left as victims. So we are trying to restore them. Secondly, we are restoring relationships. So we know when there's a wrongdoing, there's offense or a conflict, it affects the relationship. And finally, we are restoring a sense of well-being and a feeling of community. So we are trying to restore that oneness, that unity. So while the victim is restored, relationships are restored, and the community at large. So note, unless we avoid that, accomplish that restoration, conflicts are left unresolved. So it is not just about apologizing and then we'll leave it right there. That feeling of community, that feeling of oneness must also be there. So it is forced to repeat themselves again and again if these three things are not accomplished. The outcome of an exchange in using restorative questions tend to resolve the underlying issue and ease people's bad feelings. So remember, there's always the motive. So the underlying issue, what led to that behavior, what causes that behavior. All right, why do we need restoration? Normally, when persons are punished or face some form of consequences for the wrong they do, they see themselves as victims. So they dwell on their own feelings and fail to reflect on the harm they have done to others. So, for example, I did something wrong to you and I get punished for it. The first thing that I see myself is as a victim. So instead of me saying that, yes, I did something wrong, or I take responsibility for my wrong, reflect on the harm that I may have done to others, I see myself as a victim because I am facing some form of consequences. So sometimes we have been forced to offer an apology, but because they have not done, you may not have done a meaningful exchange with those who have the impact. So somebody may say, apologize to this person for what they did. You apologize to them, but there's not that really meaningful exchange. You only do it because somebody said to do it. You were forced to do it. So that form of apology now lack empathy or insight into other person's feelings. So the consequences or the punishment that may face allow offenders to be passive and to avoid real responsibility for what they have done. So that's the reason for restoration. So restoration is not simply about apologizing because I said you must apologize. It is about that meaningful exchange. It is about that feeling of empathy. It is about taking responsibility for what you have done wrong. So you acknowledge that, yes, I have committed an offense. So the goals of restorative practices, one is trying to foster understanding of the impact of the behavior. It is seeking to repair the harm that was done to people and relationship. So You have that understanding of how the behavior impact. What has it done? And you know that there's a relationship now that is broken. So you're trying to restore that. So you're repairing the harm that was done to people. Remember, we speak of the victim. Thirdly, we are attending to the needs of victims and others. Fourth, avoiding imposing intentional pain, embarrassment, or discomfort. And finally, actively involving others as much as possible. So the network of others, so as to ensure that everything is done in order. So the 9 innate effects, according to Tompkins Institute 2014, affect is the innate biological response to the decreasing, or persistent intensity of neural firing. This results in a particular feeling, facial and body display, and skin changes. Affects feel rewarding, punishment, or neutral in your own ways. Affects make things urgent. So what is this basically say? One, awareness of an affect is a feeling, or you feel, your reaction. A feeling plus memory of prior similar feelings is an emotion. So you're aware of the effect or the affect, that's a feeling. I would say the affect is the innate biological response to increasing, decreasing, or persistent intensity of neural firing. Often out of awareness, we develop rules to try to get more positive and less negative effect. Tompkins called these rules scripts. The pattern of scripts that a person uses to modulate affect make up his or her personality. So go back to the feeling and the emotion, or your response. So for example, you're enjoying something. So that's a time of joy for you. You're interested in something, so you get excited about it. You're surprised, you're startled. You're ashamed, resulting in humiliation. Distress, resulting in anguish, fear, terror, anger, rage. So you see where the feeling and the emotional response would have been there. So we know the anger, the fear, the distress, the shame, that would have been the negative affects. The interest, excitement, surprise, and startle, that would have been the neutral affects. And the enjoyment, joy, that would be the positive affects. So the compass of shame. Donald Natterson, a psychiatrist who built and extended Tompkins' work, has focused on the effect of shame, humiliation. He explained that there seems to be no specific chemical or electrical triggers for shame, as therefore the other affects. Instead, shame is defined quite simply as a reaction to any interruption of positive affect. So for example, we say one of the positive affect would have been enjoyment, something you enjoy, shame. Once you are not enjoying it anymore, once you're not having that pleasure that you once had, then he defines that to be what shame is. It is interrupted. So he continues to describe 4 ways in which you react to shame. When something terminates, a feeling of interest, excitement, or enjoyment join us. The shame that takes place points us in one of the 4 directions described on his compass of shame. And his compass of shame simply involves 4 main things. I'm going to show it now so that you can see what his compass of shame is. All right, are we able to see it?
Yes, seen it.
All right, so the compass of shame, that's it. So we see 4 main things. One is withdrawal, isolating oneself or running and hiding. So somebody is shame, the first thing they do, them run, or they go hide. Or attack self, so your self put down. So you start to talk negative now about yourself. You start to wonder, why am I going to do this? You know, you start reacting some way towards yourself. You start to attack yourself. Why you going to do this? What really make me do this? What caused this and all of that? So kiss him. Or it can be avoidance. Avoidance means you deny it. We never do it. Or abuse drugs or alcohol. So all of a sudden you say, all right, then, you know, I'm going to do this and now. So the first day you go to start go drink some alcohol or do some drink things or partake in what you shouldn't do. Or distraction through thrill seeking. So you're going to seek attention to other things now. Or you might attack others. So you start to turn the table. You might blame the victim, lash out verbally or physically. So those are the 4 things according to him that is our reaction when we are ashamed. It's either we withdraw, we attack ourselves, avoid, or we attack others. And we know we can relate to that, right? Right?
Some of them.
Normally when a person is ashamed, they respond in at least one of those ways. All right, so the compass of shame, we may help people transform and move beyond their shame in a number of ways. When people experience and demonstrating shame, these are 3 things that we can do. 1, listen to what they have to say. So listen to what they are saying. Acknowledge their feelings and encourage them to express their feelings and talk about the experience. So you're not going to condemn them and you're not going to try to put them down, but you're trying to encourage them to express their feelings, talk about what happened. Restorative questions used to respond to challenging behaviors. Question to the perpetrator. So the person who did the wrong. So these are the questions that you may ask them when you are doing restorative practice. What happened? So you get their perspective on the incident. What were you thinking of at the time? What have you thought about since? Who has been affected by what you have done? In what way? What do you think you need to do to make things right? What do you realize that in those questions you are trying to do? 1, you are trying to get out of them their perspective on the situation that happened. You are trying to let them to think like how the person who they would have harmed. You're trying to help them to put them in their shoes so that they can understand the situation from their perspective and also for them to come up with solutions. So let me repeat those questions. What happened? What were you thinking of at the time? What have you thought about since? What's been affected by what you have done? In what ways? And what do you think you need to do to make things right? All right, so those are the questions to the perpetrator. Now, the questions used to help those harmed by what action? So question to the victim. What did you think when you realized what had happened? So when you realize this happened to you, what do you think? What impact does this incident had on you and others? What has been the hardest thing for you? What do you think needs to happen to make things right? You realize it still come back down to restoration. So we have informal and the formal. I would have mentioned that earlier. Informal would have been like affective statement. So like some positive affirmation to the person. Affective questions like what I just asked. Small impromptu or conference. Informal, you know, you have formal conference, group, or circle. So informal now is like when you have that friend and you go sit with them and talk to them and so. Formal now is when you might call a conference of other persons and so, group or circle. The continuum. So affective statements really refer to feeling statements. For example, when you shout at me, I am hurt and feel ashamed as I stop responding. So somebody talking to you and them start to shout. You might at school and work or so they start shouting, you say you feel ashamed, they don't talk again. Affective questions are the questions they went through previously. You may either ask the offender of all his or her questions and then ask the victim of all of theirs, or you may ask them alternately. The small impromptu questions are for inside the room setting and use the urgent crisis issues. So remember those questions that I just went through, those are like urgent. So to quickly squash and need to be quickly squashed by others to continue harmoniously. So something might just happen now and you have to just go through this so you can just quickly squash the problem so things can continue on as how it should be. And that brings us to restorative justice. So circles is important. So the question me asks, why circles? So using proactive circles before problems occur, we begin the process of improving whether work or school climate and achieving the kind of durable solutions that we need. Traditional discipline does not achieve positive changes in behavior and fails to address the breakdown of basic decorum. So many have found that circles create a level of mutual respect in the environment. And they may find that it also helps to improve the level of self-esteem and perception of the value of their words and actions to others. So when we speak about the use of circle, there are three main things. One, problem solving to foster taking responsibility, deliver and process content, getting to know you, and the community building. So relevant circle questions and activities can be designed and structured in any way. So circles now by their first structure convey certain important ideas and values to the need for discussion. One, equality. Literally everyone in the circle has equal seating. So notice when you sit down in a circle versus when you sit down in a chair. When you sit down in a chair now, you sit right there. So now it more look like I am the head and you are just a little member there trying to listen to me. But when we sit in a circle, that more shows that we are all equal because everyone is literally sitting within that circle. So everyone is on the same level. So that's why circle is more important than even decks or any other way that we can do it. Safety and trust is also another reason. So you can see everyone in a circle, so nothing is hidden. If I'm behind a desk, it's like I'm hiding behind the desk. Responsibility, everyone has a chance to play a role in the outcome of the circle. Because remember now we are all in the circle, and so everyone has a part to play. Facilitation, the circle remains the leader to facilitate rather than lecture. So when I stand in front of you, I can just lecture to you, but when you're sitting down in a circle, sometimes you're hard to identify who is even the leader. Because like everybody just sit down in the same order. So it encourages facilitation, it encourages everyone now to take responsibility and to play a part. It also shows ownership. Collectively, the participants feel the circle is theirs. Because if I come out of the circle, what happens? There's a broken part to it. It's like we have to try to now join back to get at the circle. So everyone has a part to play. Connections, these are built as everyone listens to everyone else's response. So we can see each other and we can listen to the responses. So circle is important. Circles can be used when things are going well, can be used for check-ins and games to regroup as it has a positive connection. It is design and activity familiar as others with the idea of circles. And we know that when we are doing circles, we don't just talk about the issue just like that. We may start off with some icebreakers, you know, try to get persons feeling comfortable, getting to know each other before delivering what needs to be done. So circles is important when we are solving these kind of issues.